Hello, I'm Pastor Al, and this is Art of the Christian Ninja's Week in Review, a program meant to inform, inspire, and start conversations by presenting some of the more interesting, challenging, helpful, and weird things I've found on the internet lately. I'm glad you're listening. All right, everyone, let's get started by seeing what's going on in the news this week. Turns out that Elon Musk really wants to go to Mars, and according to a CBS News article I came across, he apparently told a crowd at South by Southwest in Austin that he's going to be testing his new spaceship as soon as 2019. He hopes to have cargo missions sent to Mars by 2022 and human flights by 2024. To me, that's crazy fast. Can you imagine people standing on the surface of Mars within the next decade? That's nuts. But then, this is the dude that has all the money in the world, and one day he decided to crank up David Bowie's Space Oddities, strap a Tesla Roadster to a rocket, point it at Mars, and hit the launch button. So I have no doubts that he can actually do it. Here's my take. My first instinct was to ask the question, why bother? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of effort just to get people, to a big dead planet that's 55 million kilometers away. That was my literal first thought. Why bother? Then I kind of wanted to jump through all the various bandwagons, well, why can't we use that money and all that effort to cure cancer or feed the hungry or something? Or why don't we finish exploring our own world first? But, then I started to think about it. God's first commands to humans were to go forth and multiply and have dominion over creation. We weren't supposed to just tend the garden. We were supposed to make the garden flourish so it would grow bigger and bigger, and along the way, we were supposed to fill it with people. That includes space, right? God put it into our hearts to explore, to understand everything about this world, and that includes the rest of the universe. He even gave humanity the job to name all the things that we can find. And what is science and exploration if not the quest to boldly go where no man has gone before and name things that haven't been named yet? Inventors gotta invent because God made them to be inventors. Engineers gotta solve problems because that's their God-given passion. Explorers gotta explore. Scientists gotta science. It's what they're built to do. So I think I'll just shut up and let Elon and his buddies do their thing. I may not understand it, but I know that I and the rest of the world reap the benefits of what all the explorers throughout the centuries have created so they could overcome their obstacles. Everything from the boat to thermometers to Velcro. So you know what? Go for it, Elon. My question to you is this. What do you think of heading to Mars? I'd love to hear your take on this whole Mars thing in the comments. Now for the next story, I didn't really intend to have my first episode say anything sad, but I live outside of Ottawa, and every time I read the news, it seems that I come across some local news event that is talking about overdosed teens, or the overwhelmed addiction centers, or the recovery services that don't have enough money. And this week, there seemed to be this focus on all the mothers who are addicted to drugs and their babies who end up being born addicted and then immediately go into withdrawal. This city is suffering from what they're calling the opioid crisis. Opioids are everywhere. Some are prescribed like codeine, Percocet, OxyContin. Others are illegal drugs like heroin and fentanyl. But, of course, it's not just my problem. The opioid crisis has taken over North America, and there's an article by Andrew Sullivan at New York Magazine, and he put together this excellent long-form essay explaining a lot of this, about why there's so much death, all this tragedy, and all the harm that's come because of these drugs. I'm not sure there's anyone I don't know that hasn't been touched by this crisis. The essay is heartbreaking and a historical overview that answers a lot of questions, like where do opioids like heroin and fentanyl even come from? What does it feel like if you take them? What does it do to your body? And what effects has it had on society? So I recommend that you read it, but I want you to be cautious because, that your curiosity doesn't cause you temptation. This podcast is meant to start a conversation, so I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to know how your life has been touched by the opioid crisis. Can you leave your comment, maybe your story in the comments? Now let's move from one addiction to another by seeing what's happening on Netflix. Fortune magazine is reporting that in an attempt to become even more addicting to children, Netflix is testing a system that will grant kids collectibles for shows that they want to watch. It's meant to be fun and cute and give them a little patch whenever they watch certain episodes, but let's be honest, it's meant to be an incentive to make kids watch more. It's kind of video gaming Netflix. That way, they can get into the binge-watching madness as early as possible. It's kind of weird move for them, actually, because they're doing this around the time when the culture is really starting to talk about what we're feeding our kids and what we're giving our kids as far as media goes. And there's so much pushback right now on companies that are making their tech so addicting. But there you go. Of course, this is the same company where the CEO once said that one of his biggest competitors is the human need for sleep. I can't be too judgy, though. I know I've stayed up way too late sometimes, binge watching some show when it first comes out. I love sci-fi, I love superhero stuff, and it's always tempting to end the day with a few hours of TV, and once I start my show, I don't even need to get up. The next episode just starts after 5 seconds and then skips the next one's intro. It's like this constant stream of show. It's designed to keep me in my chair and watching. Man, how many pastors, how many Christian writers have warned us about this kind of stuff? They want our eyeballs, people, and they know how to get them. And they want our kids as early as possible. So my question to you is this: are you a binge watcher? What kind of Netflix rules do you have at your house? Are there limits? And maybe just, how did Netflix change your life? Now let's turn over to see what's happening in the blogosphere. I read a lot of blog posts, but here's one that I thought was worth sharing this week. If you want more, maybe go follow me on Facebook. There's an article by Rachel Joy Welcher, and it's called When the Unbeliever Departs, The Aftermath. It's actually a follow-up to an article called When the Unbeliever Departs that she wrote 2 years ago. It's all about Rachel's experience when her husband loses his faith and walks out on their marriage. The article is actually a continuation that focuses on the lessons she learned through that difficult time in her life. It speaks of all the anxiety she was going through and what it's like to go to church as a newly single person, the pain of being spiritually separated from someone and through divorce, the danger of isolation, the false guilt and the fear and the shame that came over her, and it also has some of the really bad advice she got along the way. It's a pretty sad article, but I'm amazed by this woman's strength. It ends up in a really good place. She's obedient, she's honest, and she gives a lot of hope. I do recommend that you read it, but I was really reminded by how many people are in our own congregations that are married to non-believers and how difficult that must be. I have no concept of that. I talk to these people and they talk about how hard it is, and this article really helped me understand that. It also reminded me how important it is that both Christian spouses keep working together and talking to each other about spiritual things and not let all that busyness and just assuming that you're okay get between you and your husband or you and your wife. And it reminded me how important premarital counseling is before anyone gets married, because it's really important that Christians marry Christians. Ask anyone who's married to a non-Christian, any faithful person married to a non-Christian. It's really hard. So I want you to give that a read and then let me know what you think. Are you the only Christian in your marriage? What's that like? Or do you have a really healthy, spiritually healthy marriage? How do you keep it that way? All right, let's move into the library and talk about some books. This week's book, which I just finished recently, is called How Christianity Changed the World by Alvin J. Schmidt. Wow, I love my Kindle. I got this book for only $3 when it went on sale, and I learned so much from it. I came across it when I was writing my sermon about women in the church, and I thought I knew a lot about how the Christian faith had affected Western society, but it turns out I had no idea. This book covers a lot, and it is super interesting. It talks about how Christianity changed societies, how they viewed murder, abortion, slavery, women's rights, charity, hospitals, education, child labor, science, law, art, so much more radically affected by Christianity. So I super highly recommend this book to anyone who loves to learn about history, anyone who wants to know more about Christianity, and anyone who just wants to be able to toot Jesus' horn for all the amazing grace he's brought into the world by working through his church. Now, to close off, I want to dip our toes into the wild and wonderful pool of confusion that is social media. With all the heavy topics out there, I'm going to keep it light this week, and I'll give you a couple of YouTube links for you to check out. First, I want to play you a hockey commercial. Take a listen to this.
The team is on the ice ready to go, and I'll tell you, this isn't going to be easy. The puck is dropped, and here we go.
This red light of mine,
They got the whole
I'm gonna let it shine. This red light of mine, red light is in me here.
They have the puck.
This red light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Yes, every day. Let it shine.
What a beauty! Unbelievable!
Yeah, what you're listening to is Budweiser selling some beer by singing the tune of the old gospel song, This Little Light of Mine. I cannot remember where I first saw this, but it stuck with me and I wanted to share it. I don't even know what to say about it. I'm not upset, I'm just sort of stunned. For that to happen, think about that, for that to happen, that commercial to happen, I'm guessing that someone in the ad company has sent their kid to Sunday school, the kid came home singing the song, they heard it and thought, you know what? We should totally turn that song into a beer jingle. I don't know. What do you think of a beer commercial using This Little Light of Mine to sell beer? Okay, second, this is a fun one. You absolutely have to listen to the newest bad lip reading of the Star Wars song. It's called It's Not a Moon, and it's hilarious. Now, it's not as good as my all-time favorite, where Yoda sings about seagulls attacking his head at the beach, but it's still pretty good. Give it a little bit of a listen here.
Girl, you're crazy cute.
I'm gonna kick some grits up on your face.
Yeah, alright. Do you have any bunions or lesions upon you? Let me check your feet.
Why?
I don't like parasites or children of the night. A quail and his rubber beak are beautifully unique.
Bleep, bloop, blow. Goodbye to your home.
They've got the ultimate power in.
I love it. Now that's the end of the show. So my closing question for you this week is this. What should I call this show? I got a couple ideas, like Ninja News, Week in Review. I don't know. What should I call this show? Leave your answer in the comments and help me out. Just a reminder that all the links to all these stories can be found on my blog, and if you come across any other topics or interesting news items, send them along to me. If you like this episode and appreciate what I'm doing with the Art of the Christian Ninja, please hit the like button, the subscribe, the share buttons, and then pass this on to your friends.